Mobile. I'm very proud today of introduce the second talks of this Salone del Mobile 2023 edition with designer Nao Tamura, introduced by Felix Burrichter. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I don't know if this is it working?
I think so.
It is, okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. As Annalisa already introduced, my name is Felix Burrichter. I am the creative director of the New York-based architecture and design magazine Pinup. And it is a great pleasure to be here today with Nao Tamura, who is also from New York, originally from Japan.
Yes.
The subject today is interconnections. One of the important things that we would like to talk about today now is the idea that here at Salone and even during for Salone in the city of Milan this week, we're surrounded by or confronted with a lot of beautiful objects. And of course, design constitutes objects, but design is also communication, first and foremost. It's a form of communication, and maybe today, during our talk, we would like to unpack a little bit on how that communication is done,
yes,
and how those things are interconnected.
Yep.
There's a special relationship that Nao has with Salone because in 2010, I believe, she won the first prize at Satellite. And if you haven't already, I highly recommend you check out Satellite over in Hall 15. Her project in 2010 was called Seasons. And I hope we get to see a little bit of it in the slides that you have prepared.
Yeah.
So one thing that Nao shared with me before this, when we prepared for this, was that it's very important for her to address, of course, the general audience here coming to Salone and to Euroluce, but especially young designers or even students. So if you're in the audience, please feel particularly addressed by this conversation. So I think you prepared to, should we kick off the,
Sure.
start with the presentation?
Well, thanks for the introduction. My name is Nao Tamura. I am a designer based in New York, like Felix. I was born and grew up in Tokyo, Japan. And I'm going to start from my childhood memory connected to where I am now as a designer. When I was a child, I wasn't good at studying, academic. And there's one thing I still remember well. During upper grade of elementary school, I got a score of 26 out of 100 on my final math test.
Mm-hmm.
Since I wasn't good at studying, so the number itself wasn't unusual for me, but on this rare occasion, my teacher decided to make a chart like this to share with all the parents. The top was 100, and the bottom was 0, and slightly above the middle line, we had 40 classmates. Their dots were scattered through the chart. And all the way on the bottom, myself. And I remember one more student got bad score also, all the way on the bottom.
So where are you in this?
I remember this. Not exactly like this, but I remember this. And, well, it was to share with the parents. I brought this home I gave it to my mother, who was in the kitchen working. Actually, my mom was also a designer, so she often do drawings in the kitchen table. So I gave it to her, and she was looking at it for a little while. And, of course, you would think she would say, you have to study harder. But then she turned the chart upside down and circled my dot with the red pen she was using for her work. And she said, it's unique. I was very fortunate that I was raised by parents who taught me to accept who I was and not guilt me into feeling like I should be like the rest. It was a blessing for me. And, since I wasn't good at studying, I had no choice but to pursue the only field I was good at, which was art. And I left my parents and moved to New York City. And I was 19 when I arrived in New York City with one suitcase. And the color of people's skin, the language they spoke, the food I smelled, the music I heard, everything was mixed together, and it was just stimulating experience, as you probably know. And I went to college called Parsons School of Design, and I major in communication design, which is communication between the design object and the audience, and like information design, packaging design, advertising, stuff like that. And for the first time in my life, I found something I was truly interested in, and I immersed myself into every single class assignment. And after days and weeks and sometimes months of hard work, and I think art students, I'm sure they do the same. And I created my own design, and I was so excited. It's my own design. And I brought it to a critique class, but somehow I couldn't communicate my idea and concept behind my design to the professor or the other students. And of course, at that time, my English wasn't so good, but more importantly, we weren't taught to speak up back in Japan. But somehow I feel like I was understood by people around me from saying somehow, or this is how usually it's done, without even listening to my own feelings, and I just follow everybody else. So growing up in Japan, and now I step into New York City, I became very aware of the cultural differences. I didn't understand what people meant or what they were feeling unless they told me. And vice versa, I don't think they understood how I was feeling or what I was thinking unless I told them. People in New York City are naturally very curious. They have no hesitation of asking who you are and who you are about. It wasn't like that in Japan. And each one of us are different. So we have been questioned as an individual. And I felt like if I don't have my own identity or my own opinion, my own thinking, my own voice, I'm gonna just swiped away and I don't even exist. I felt that in New York. And so I think I was starting to be aware of the need to listen to my own feelings and to live honestly with my own thoughts, which I wasn't doing that back in Japan. And after graduating from Parsons, focusing on the emotional aspect of design, I become interested in function of object. And I decided to work for a product design firm. And I worked for them for 5 years. And my curiosity to see the outside world let me start my own practice. And I submitted my work at Satellite.
Over there.
There. I just sent a paper, And at that time, I had many opportunity to work on mass production design, and I look at the large number of new objects being created every single season. I'm sure you feel this being at the fair. Every season, new stuff, new stuff. And I was wondering, as designer design, a manufacturer produce them, people buy, people use, and eventually those objects no longer being used. And where do they go? So the, the journey to find an answer to that simple question, I realized that I was just a graphic designer working for a product design firm. And I never made my own product before. All I had was just desire to express myself. And I paid a fee to show it here, so just to do it. Anyway, and I made this project called Seasons. In the land I grew up, spring is the time when Japanese sweets are wrapped in cherry leaves. In the summertime, we use ripe tomato as a serving container. And in autumn, we use maple leaves, those colorful leaves to decorate the dinner table. Just as winter is followed by spring, there is things withers, like the old leaves dies, and those new are born. Those always new leaf comes up. And things too can reborn in new form after they're no longer used. And I thought we must remain conscious of this cycle we have in nature, just as we're conscious about the seasons, to be responsible to this planet and be sustainable. And I created this flexible plate made of recyclable silicone. So the idea is you can toss, it doesn't break, and you can toss into dishwasher machine or oven. And I exhibited, I'm sure some of the younger people did that a few days ago, but somehow the season's play got the first prize of Salone Satellite Award. But honestly, I don't think the fact that I got the award wasn't because of the quality of my design.
But
I think it was a response to the fact that I intercommunicated my idea to the audience. So I stepped out into a new world and asked questions to the audience. This is how I feel. What do you think? And the small question, why, became a conversation. And I was able to connect with so many people at Satellite through the conversation and the connection. And I think I started to realize that the designer's work is to make people opportunity to think through the design. So, like, for example, everybody talks about sustainability. It's a big topic, and I don't think there's one simple answer to it. But we can seek out the path on which direction we can take. Together, we can all think, like creative people can think, and then you as an audience can think about, like, you have a choice not to buy, or everybody have to think about this sustainability, not only the people who's making design. And I wanted to continue posing questions that explore future together with everybody. So some of the conversation I had at the Salone Satellite eventually led me to my future collaboration with companies. So this is the lighting project I did with lighting manufacturer. And actually, I met the owner kind of through satellite. There's something in between, but the owner came to me and he said, "Do you want to design a chandelier made of glass?" And I said, "Chandelier," and I'm not very familiar with, the object. The only place I see chandelier is at the maybe hotel. And then I asked him why chandelier, and he said, "If you place one chandelier in the room, it's gonna change the look and feel like that, like a magic." And I thought, that's interesting. Object can change people's feelings. And also they told me that they wanted to share the world, the craftsmanship of Venetian glassblower, whose population is actually shrinking. So I took an advantage of the depths of the glass material, which can be only expressed by those glass blowers, and made this lamp called float.
Is this Murano, by the way, or is it Murano glass? Because it is based in Venice, correct?
In Venice, yeah.
Project,
yeah. And I went to the factory, and actually they have different location, but one of the location was like that, beautiful place. And I was looking at the reflection of the cityscape of Venice. I thought it's like there's a world, there's a border in between, there's a world above, and there's another world under the water, and there's a border in between, which is the horizon. And I wanted to use the horizon as the light source, and so that's the horizon. And this is my interpretation of modern contemporary chandelier, which you can customize and add, extend as much as you want, extend the horizon, depending on the size of your space. And this project...
I'm going to hold the prop up.
This one is project commissioned by Japanese lighting company, Ambientech. They have a booth right there.
Right, yes, actually right across from the auditorium.
Yeah.
You should use the opportunity to check
There.
it out after the talk.
Yeah. And in this age of impermanent mass production era, instead of producing something disposable, my client and I shared the idea to use authentic and long-lasting material that people can use and repair if it's necessary and enjoy for a long time. And actually, this company originally specialized in scuba diving lighting equipment. And in the first meeting, the owner, I think he's somewhere here, he brought this lighting equipment to my studio. It's heavy duty, the professional photographer use it under the ocean. And I was looking at it, and I was just falling in love with details and the precision of details. And the LED, they can combine different LED to make very natural light source, like nothing like back in the day artificial light, but you can make a very natural light because they need to light up those beautiful colorful fishes under the ocean. But imagine use that technology to light up your dinner table. Your food's gonna look good.
So,
Yeah.
for example, for the Venice project, the brief was a chandelier.
Yeah.
The brief, I mean, I could assume what it was, but can you maybe talk about what they approached you wanting to create a cordless light, or?
So they're very specialized in portable,
Portable,
like
yes,
because
right.
the scuba diving you can have a cable hanging.
Exactly, yeah.
So they're very good at no cable light. So you know, he didn't give me exact brief what he wants to have, but I just picked everything from what the skill they possess, and a lot of times you don't get detailed brief. You kind of, you know, they wanted, but actually they did. He did say they wanted to have a lighting. You can put it on a dinner table, and what else he said? Maybe he can talk about that. But
Well, again, I encourage people to go see it because it also has a really beautiful weight.
yeah, it's a very so that one is a brass, and this one is the family. It's using a solid glass, and it has a very and you can use it outside. You know, you can use it in a shower, like you ask.
You can go diving with it.
What?
You can go diving with it.
I don't know how
To some
deep,
extent, to some extent,
maybe
yeah.
maybe pool.
No, not too far.
Yeah. So this lamp is characterized by its detail and the craftsmanship, the hand touch. And this one we used, I don't have it here, but where the details there is the leather that we launched the new one. So all project starts from many questions, the issues behind each project, the history of the client, like the skill, like I just said, they put, you know, the skill they have, and sometimes listening to my clients' personal passion or thought is very valuable. Sometimes it's not a words, sometimes the facial expression in the meeting or the way they dress. All the information in the conversation become a roadmap to the design process. So that's why I think the most important time designing is actually not time designing, but the time communicating. So starting from my question, and I get a lot of information from them based on, you know, they have a history of, you know, something they specialize on, and, which I don't know, and I receive that, and I bring back my outside perspective back to them. Like the lighting project that I just showed you, the float and this, even though they're the same lighting project, but outcome, the look and feel is almost like the opposite, depending on the client. So back and forth, when those two unique perspectives are well balanced, idea expand and it leads to a good design. And since this is the year of Euroluce, I'm going to share a little bit about my passion towards lighting design. Well, lighting design could be about shape. Lighting design, it can be about material.
Can you go back one?
Yeah.
This is, I think
Go
this
back?
is Tiki, right? The one before. The bird.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you talk about the shape a little bit and the?
It's a bird.
It's a bird.
It's a bird.
Okay.
Sometimes it's, you know, I just
Sometimes it's very simple.
I wanted to explore the shape. No deep story behind this. Again, about material and craftsmanship. This is a lighting called Memento.
Memento.
Yep.
And how did the pendulum, is that how does it have a function of?
So I wanted to. So I'm gonna. I have a photo afterwards, but the reflection become like a water drips. The pendulums move slightly, so it creates the organic reflection on the floor. So that was kind of the idea. Um, Lighting could be about color. You know, there's a lot of beautiful color lighting at the fair. And light today is closely
I'm going to
bound up. Yeah.
present this one.
Yeah, bound up with technology. Technology opened up so many creative, opportunity compared to 20 years ago. We can do so much. So that's the sage. Look how thin the light source is.
So,
Maybe you can.
but I'm actually, hold on, where did I turn it on?
It's right here.
Ah, yes.
So there's 4 different the power. Yeah. And lighting design is about functionality and usability. You can nowadays it's a touch sensor. You can usability and functionality, of course, just like all other product design, but lighting design is about designing the light, something that doesn't exist and something you can't touch light. So this is the memento. We did installation a couple years ago. So lighting design is something, yeah?
Sorry, the installation that we just saw here in the previous image. So these reflections on the floor, or is it water that we see?
No, that's just the paper.
It is exact. So it's just paper, and what you see on the floor is created through the light coming through the sort of drop shape of the glass.
And it keeps moving. And depends on where the light is, the size of the reflection changes.
And also the position of the
ball can be changed, yeah. So
I'm sorry, I'm sorry I interrupt you like this.
That's all right.
There's so much subtlety in your work. I think it's always nice to give a little bit of context.
Yeah, appreciate that. So, that's why I always hope to design something that speaks to people's heart and talks to sometimes memory, like that. This one I just showed you was about the water drip that everybody, and this is a horizon, and this is, all leaves always follow the sunlight. So that was kind of idea that I got.
This is the idea for the sage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And lighting design has the perfect balance between emotion and function. The part that I really love. It has to function well, but it's very emotional. And yes, light design is a symbol of life and hope. And the most precious asset people wants to have in a dark and desperate time, like we were in a COVID time. Lights. And also this you can't tell this is bright, but they made the light, they combined 2 different LED to make it very close to the light of candle. You have to touch the...
Up.
No,
No.
here.
Oh, yes.
So back to interconnection. So this project was public toilet I designed. This is in Tokyo. And the lighting project that I just showed you was based on one-on-one conversation with the client. But this one was my first public toilet, of course toilet, public project that led by a large group of diverse background. And this location is very close to a major subway station in Tokyo. And I went to field research, and there's so many different type of people, like a lot of businessmen, mom pushing the stroller, students, and there's a lot of taxi drivers. They park on the street and they just walk in and come out. I don't think they even wash their hand. A lot of them come and go. And I was asking myself, have I ever used outdoor public toilet while I was in Japan? And the answer was no. I never used public outdoor toilet, especially at night or being alone. And I did, of course, it's yes dirty and stinky, but more, I didn't feel safe to go into a room that anybody could walk in and there's no way out. So I thought addressing safety and privacy is the most essential part, and I focus on that. And I use this color red, which this first time I use in my design. I tend to like a little more natural color, but red is an alert color. It's the kind of a symbol of safety and urgency, like an ambulance or fire truck use. So this is not the place you gather and it's a comfortable place that people hang out. You do your business in and go safely. So that was kind of the idea behind it. But the shape is inspired by this traditional Japanese method called origata. It's kind of like origami to wrap the gift.
The site is a triangular site, right?
So yes.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
think we saw like a model earlier, or like a
Yeah.
geometry. Yeah.
So that's why the origami kind of idea. But this origata is a method to wrap so it's a symbolize of the pureness and cleanliness, so that the gift is not being touched by other people. So back in the day, we used to use a piece of paper and fold it precisely and wrap and also it's a symbol of the highest form of respect. The idea is you think about that person while you're folding. So that's kind of the traditional Japanese method, and I wanted to use that for this toilet because the cleanness and also this was designed for the Japanese Olympic past.
Okay.
Yeah. So we launched it to time it to the Olympics. So we're expecting a lot of guests from outside.
And in fact, I don't know if that was that was part of the design already. When did you start working on this? Was it pre-pandemic? I think that's what I'm trying to get at. Did you work on this before the pandemic hit?
That was before, but when they're doing the construction, it was during the pandemic. So I
wonder how the project changed also, because this is
That's a good question. I didn't see this toilet until it's done. And actually, I was picking color. This color red was really hard color to pick because this is metal. I wanted to make it look like a paper. So it's it's fairly thick slab of metal, but from far it looks thin. But it gets hot from the sun. So you have to be heat protected, heat resistant color. So that messed up all the color. And I was picking matte and a little bit gloss. And I thought I said I wanted gloss, which is this color, and semi-gloss. But I guess I said I want matte. And it looked like a pink. And I asked my father to check the toilet. And then he called me from the site and he said, "Now, did you pick pink for a toilet?" And I didn't say I didn't pick pink. And then it was pink. The matte makes it look like pink. And I asked him to repaint the whole thing. So that was the disaster from the COVID. That wouldn't happen if I were there.
Right.
So it's
Can I ask a...
Yes.
Sorry,
Yeah. Toilet?
well, I think one thing that affects is something that is a sort of an element of a designer's life is that's, depending on who you are, is, you know, and who you work with, is either very difficult or very easy, and it's naming your project. You have really beautiful names for some of them, you know, and Sage and Turnt and Turnt Plus, and you know, some are very descriptive. This one is very direct. Tokyo Toilet.
The project, the whole project. So this was Shibuya City picked 15 architects and designers, and the whole project was called the Tokyo Toilet.
Tokyo Toilet.
I didn't name it.
Oh, I
they
see.
did.
Okay. Does it have a personal?
This one is a triangle.
Okay. But I'm curious in general. What is your process for naming products?
Naming the lighting fixture is very difficult because it's all taken. It's look at how many
I mean,
lighting.
probably
is.
everyone is nodding for.
Yeah, I mean, look at how many. If somebody count how many design, like lighting design in this hall, it's like, this is one season. So it was very hard. So the turn, I think the original idea was something else. Was it like spin or something? Because it spins the machine. So you have to kind of tweak, change the alphabet a little bit here and there, and make it your own. But I like to have a name that, you know, talks about design. Like a sage, I got it from the leaf. So, yeah. So it's been more than 20 years since I started my journey. And looking back over those years, I think I always place myself in a new environment, not intentionally. I just follow my instinct. That's the first step. And if I overthink or plan too much, I start to question my own feelings. Was it the right thing? And eventually get stuck. So I just follow my instinct and casually take the first step. Like I have Japan as a homeland. I step into New York City. I have Eastern way of value things. And living in New York, I learned the practical way to approach issues and importance of communication. Japan and New York, East and West, there's a strong connection between those two. And in design too, I learned communication design, and I stepped into product design world. I value the sensibility and emotional aspect of design, but just the story itself is not good enough. The functionality, the ability to enrich people's life is equally important. So emotion and function are equally important. When they're well balanced, it leads to good design. So taking first step, it doesn't mean that you're starting from scratch. No matter what kind of steps you're taking, it's all interconnected. So I try to keep open mind when I take the first step to accept new idea, new culture, new people who are different from myself. Of course, accept it. I just said accept them. It's not that easy. I have client. This is a very male-driven world, and I'm a woman. I'm fairly young, and my client is elder man, and he told me something that I don't necessarily agree with, but I just like, okay, all right, I'll do it because you say so. But that kind of concession eventually create imbalance, or like you don't accept other people just because I don't know what she's talking about. I know better. Then the connection will be still broken. So I think the most important thing is try to accept other person, no matter how long it takes or no matter how much troubleness it may create. Try to accept and go through the process is important. And I just talk about acceptance, but maintain the balance means you can't just accept. You need a force pushback. You need to communicate. You have to push back your opinion, right? I was 19 when I got into New York. I couldn't communicate anything. I was good at accepting, though. I wanted to become New Yorker, so I dressed like everybody else. I tried to speak like New Yorker, but I was just being tourist. I didn't push back. My world was tiny, but I was able to expand my world little by little because I consciously tried to communicate, push back, accept, and push back. To maintain the balance, was tiny world that I had expanded, and the interconnection became a strength. And I see this is like interconnection to me at the fair. Like nowadays, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever, you can get information a lot from here. But that's accepting. You're not doing anything, you just accept, so it doesn't go anywhere. But coming to the fair like this, that's already pushing back, and I can see a lot of possibility is expanding here at the fair. So
I'm curious,
Yeah.
these beautiful diagrams and graphics, and you said you came to New York and when you were 19 years old to study at Parsons communication design. To what, and I don't know how your English skills were, and they're clearly excellent now, but when you were 19, I wonder to what extent design also helped you communicate quite literally, with people, not just ideas about design, but even in your kind of daily experience of with people.
You mean language?
But maybe also, sorry?
You mean language? How much?
Yes.
I think like if you have a design, basically, you shouldn't explain what's so great about your design. That's the bottom line, I think. You have to explain it every time people look at the product. That means it's not a very good design. But also, it's very important to communicate what you're trying to do, even though maybe you don't get the message from the design, but there's a story behind it, which is very important. So nowadays, like Chat GTP, you type in a keyword and you get designs. So you can get shape like that quick, but the story and experience behind it, computer can't have. So I think, I'm not really answering your question, but the language, the English, the communication is very important. Even though you have the object, it's easier. I'm not a lawyer. I don't need to speak fluent English because of design. But I think it's just still important.
I'm curious, again, to go back to that moment, because it was a very sort of defining moment also in your life when you decided to go to New York and study at Parsons. Why was it important to you to specifically also speak to an audience of students or young designers today?
What do you mean, like?
Why was it important? Because as I mentioned going into at the beginning, it was very important for you that this was also very much for an audience of young designers and students, and I'm curious why.
Because like I said, because I think a lot to do with social media. You feel like you know a lot, and you feel like you experience a lot because you've seen the photos. Like everybody posts photo from a Salone, right? And somebody in the bedroom, like on a bed, looking at the photos. You feel like you've been there, and so your head gets bigger, and it's not easy to make an action. You go out and actually do it. And I think a lot of younger people, because of social media, their head can be big, and you feel like you know better, and you start to get better at judging people, but kind of stepping forward and try, step into new world, that's very important. So I kind of wanted, I was very shy, as, Asian, not very talkative person, but I could expand my world, and I feel it's very meaningful for me to be here because I was showing at Satellite a couple years ago, and now I'm here. So it could happen to anybody. So I wanted to. I'm not special. Anybody can do that if you're conscious to try new things and not afraid of. Don't get head big.
Had you wished to have someone like you, to have seen someone like you when you were a student, to give this talk?
If I understand English, yeah. Maybe I don't know. I'm not saying like I can influence them. I'm not, saying I'm great in anything. I'm not like that. I'm just saying I'm just a normal Japanese student who just wanted to make things. I'm sure a lot of them here, especially Satellite, they love making things, but this is a huge step to be here at Satellite, and who knows, somebody, big company show up and it's like, let's make this, happens. Like I show Seasons plate Salone, and Nasia sitting here from Najis. They were the judge, and they asked me to show the Seasons installation at Design Miami the same year. And then I met the owner of Wonderglass at the Miami. So it's all connected. So you never know.
Again, it's interconnected.
Yeah, you never know what connects, but you have to go step forward.
You even did it, I think a few years ago, you also did a project called Interconnectedness. No? So
Are you just doing that? This is what I'm going to show now. That's like a comedy. Well, this is the last project I like to show. It's called Interconnection. This is commissioned by car manufacturer Lexus, based on the balance between us human and nature. We have experienced so many natural disasters like earthquake, tsunami, typhoon, volcano, so many. And we have learned there's forces in nature way beyond the control of mankind. And we also have learned how fragile we are in the face of such forces. Yeah. But also we have learned the importance of accepting nature and to live harmony with nature. So my goal was to engage the visitor to this installation, and I wanted to create an interaction between the visitor, the movement, and the mobile itself. So the visitor's movement and its light and shadow balancing with the mobile itself. So accepting and coexisting with the mobile itself. So this installation, if you place pressure on one section, the entire mobile be impacted. And if you remove even small parts from the installation, the whole mobile will collapse. So the idea was even a small action by each of us can impact this planet and Earth greatly. So I wanted to give visitor a chance to feel that from this mobile and think about it. So that was kind of the idea of this. This is where I met, no?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So
Oh,
this is how it moved.
And this is mostly, there's no light sources built in here.
So light is hidden
It's
from
a,
the
yeah,
side.
it's a top.
And it doubles the look because the reflection creates. So like climate change, racial discrimination, especially we see in US, or gender discrimination, and so many issues we face today are caused by a lack of acceptance, I think. But if all of us can be aware of the invisible balance that is connected to communication, I think the positive energy created will be the gentle power to accept others. And I don't know, maybe one person may not be able to do much alone, but if we can connect and resonate together, I believe we can create much greater energy and power and a society that strives to embrace diversity. So that's kind of the interconnection starting from.
Beautiful. Thank you. In the spirit of interconnectedness, I know we're already a little over time, but in the spirit of interconnectedness, I would like to open the questions to the audience. And I believe we have a microphone, right? Yes, perfect. So if we can take 3 questions, maybe 4. Do we have it? Oh, there's one over there. Would you? Hello? Do you have a microphone? Can you please bring it? Do you have one?
Yeah.
Okay, what's your question?
Okay. First of all, thank you for this presentation and the discussion. I would like to project a bit to the future with you and try to understand the interconnectivity evolution in 30 years. In your perspective, what do you think our needs would be to keep up this interconnection really in 30 years? So the design will continuously contribute on that, or would it become more of something to be subtracted?
That's a deep question.
Maybe just one question.
In this time, it's very difficult to predict the future, right? There's so much unpredictable things happening, like COVID. Who imagined that's what's gonna happen? So I really can't talk about too much about future, but I think, like I said, like interconnection, like it's back in the days, like us human did whatever we wanted, not accepting nature or not care about nature, and look what happens. Or back in the days, maybe designer is the person who has a vision, and here's the thing, and this is the object, it's all one way, human designers. But what I was trying to say in the presentation, it's because the future is unpredictable, everybody have to think And I'm not really answering his question, but I think it shouldn't be always one way.
It shouldn't be,
it
sorry?
should be one way. The designer have the vision, but then the buyers, the audience have to have their vision too. And you can count on one person to find an answer. Your answer might be different from my answer. That's great. But let's talk about it. That's the interconnection. So hopefully, the bigger the connection spreads and move forth to the brighter future. I'm not really answering his question, am I?
It's okay.
It's okay.
Well, let's try another one. You have another question?
So my answer is I don't know the future. So let's think about it together.
One more question for Nao Tamura.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was great. I'm wondering if you are thinking about interconnection from a theoretical perspective, so among humans, not just between humans and objects, between a designer and a client, but generally speaking among people, in situations like this. You tell us very important words like acceptance, like listening, so I'm wondering if you are also thinking about interconnection in a, let's say, not the practical and applied way, but interconnection among people. And maybe this is linked with the previous question. What will expect us in the future? Will we connect just by digital tools, or are we still do we have the necessity to still continue to meet and interconnect in person? Thank you.
What do you think?
What do I think? I think as long as there's humans, they will have to connect face to face. I mean, I think there will never be a world where humans no longer communicate directly. I think there are more tools available to facilitate non-direct, human communication. But I think there's also adaptation process that happens when technology is introduced, and it always, I think we always live, or at least 10 years behind possibility of what is even technologically possible, if not 20, if not 30, actually. I think you could probably live with a lot of technology that we just wouldn't know how to use because it doesn't feel intuitive to our daily lives. So again, I'm not sure it's really answering the question, but I do think that as long as there's humans, there's human connection. There's just no.
Yeah.
And I hope I won't be proven wrong.
I still think the human connection is very important, even though, like I said, we feel like we are connected through technology, a lot. Like, if you have a lot of friends on your Instagram account, you feel like you're connected to thousands of people. But to me, here, I met you. That's the real connection. That I think I see future here, not too much the digital way, because this is an interconnection, and I think the human interaction is honestly, like during COVID, I didn't come to Salone, and I'm sure I'm not the only person who felt like, do we really need to go to a fair now? It's too many people, germs everywhere. But now I'm here back at the fair, and I see so many interconnections, and that's it's so much more valuable than you used to be, and this is what we need for, I think, to, the interconnection is like a branch. This is how it grows, and that connects to the future. So I think it's still human connection, and the philosophical connection is very important. Not only to humans, us and nature too. It's the philosophical connection. Not too much you touching, holding hands, but that's very important, I think, for the future.
Well, I think one other aspect about interconnection that I thought was really interesting, also especially for designers like you who work internationally, in a very international companies from different countries and production in Italy and in Japan, and is also the interconnectedness of supply chain, of production, and also to develop a level of awareness of where things are actually coming from. And it doesn't just get dropped from the sky. Certain materials come from certain places, and I think that is a really important aspect of this idea of interconnectedness, and it's also really important for this to be communicated in moving forward.
Yeah.
Because we all see how the world is interconnected in ways that sometimes people don't even want you to know. With the war in Ukraine, there was a shortage of the delivery of wheat to countries. You didn't even know that these trade routes even existed until they no longer are possible.
Yeah. During COVID, because we couldn't meet face to face, I found it extremely difficult. Even though you can connect through the Zoom, you can look at their face, but I found it very difficult to get information from the client because I don't have the human connection. And like I said that in presentation, I receive a lot of information, not only on the brief on the paper, like I'm looking at you and the way you just smile or the way you nod, maybe she didn't like this. And you get that a lot, you can't get that too much on Zoom. And I feel like the stuff that I as a designer, I really struggled during the COVID, even though technology is there, but it's still important.
Well, Nao, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Nao. Thank you, Felix, for being with us today. It has been very inspiring. Thank you.
And I think there's another talk tomorrow, correct? Yes.
Yeah.
So
Tomorrow, same time, same arena.
And who will be our guest tomorrow?
Tomorrow is Shnoetta with Anne-France Berthelon that will moderate. And on Saturday, we have Mad Architects with Amit and Samta from Steer Magazine moderating.
You
So
don't want to miss those. And then you also don't want to miss going to Ambient Tech to see Nao's pieces in
Please touch and feel.
thank you.